Hey everyone, this is Miss Ava Hart. It is Saturday, October 10th, 2020 at 4:15 p.m. All right, this instructional video, we're going to talk about annotation. I'm going to explain what annotation is. I'm going to give you the annotation symbols, and then I'm going to give you examples. All right, so one, annotation. So annotation is where you leave your mark with the text. Marking up a text and or marking notes so that you can better comprehend what you read. Having a written conversation with the text. Text messaging with the text. Now the reason I call it text messaging with the text, because the symbols will replace the emojis that most of us use when we text. But it's basically, annotation is you having a conversation with the text. If you watch my instructional video, class notes for the week of Monday, October 28th, I gave you an example of annotation. Basically, what I told you is that a lot of times when students read a text, they just look at the words and they don't really engage with the text. They don't have a conversation with the text. They don't pause and stop and think and ask questions. They just read it and then they close the book. So this assignment will teach you how to have a conversation with the text. Annotation. Leave your mark with the text. Marking up a text and or marking notes so that you can better comprehend what you read. Having a written conversation with the text. Text messaging with the text. This is the definition of annotation. Now, if we were in the classroom, your textbook that you have, you can write in that. And if we were in the classroom, you would annotate in your textbook. And then you would bring the textbook to me and I would grade it. But since we're not in the classroom, I'm going to show you how you can annotate in a Word document. So first of all, you need to know the symbols that we are going to use. Now, in every class with different teachers, you may have different symbols. These are just the symbols that we're going to use for my class. But the concept is the same. So if you're reading and you find a new vocabulary word or a word that you aren't familiar with, you're going to underline it. You're going to underline it. Okay? So if you're reading and you find a word that you've never heard before and it's new to you, you underline that vocabulary word. And then on the side, if you were using your book, if you were writing in your book, on the side, you would write the definition of that word. All right, question mark. So this is symbol number one, the underline. All right, symbol number two is question mark. So you would underline the text. If we were in class and you had your book, you would underline the text that you had a question about. And then on the side, in the margin, you would write the question that you had. You would say, my question is, and then you would write the question. All right, the third symbol is the exclamation point. That means that, yes, this relates to my life for the reason being. It's like you have a light bulb moment, or it's like you can relate to what you just read. So you would underline the text, and then you would put the exclamation point next to the text, and then you would say, how did what you just underlined, how does that relate to your life? And you would explain that in the margin. Now that I'm explaining it in a way, if we were in the classroom, how you would write it in your book. But I'm going to show you how you're going to do it on a Word document, how you're going to annotate on a Word document. All right, and then the last symbol, because I think I only did, or how many? 1, 2. So you got the underlined for new vocabulary word. You have the question mark because you just read something and now you have a question. You have the exclamation point, which means that, hey, I just read something that relates to my life. And it relates to my life because, and then you put in the margin how it relates to your life. And here's the @ symbol. This detail is important because. So you would underline the text, put the @ symbol, and say, this is important because. And in the margin, you would write why you believe that this detail or this sentence is important. This is if we were in the classroom and you were writing, you were annotating in your book. Okay, so here are, and I think it's one more symbol. Yep. The last symbol is the hashtag. And this is hashtag summarize. You're going to summarize a paragraph. And you would write this in the margin. You could underline the entire paragraph. And then next to that paragraph, you would put hashtag. And if I saw the hashtag, I knew that you, in the margin, you're getting ready, or in the margin, I should expect to see you summarize that paragraph. So if I saw in your textbook, you underline an entire paragraph, and then you put the hashtag symbol, I know that in the margin next to that paragraph, you just summarized that paragraph. You just put that paragraph in your own words. And you would write this. Long story short, this paragraph is saying. And you summarize in about 2 or 3 sentences. All right, so let's see. I'm going to now give you examples. So let's do the first one. I took a paragraph out of 1963, the year that changed everything. So example number 1. The directions is use 2 of the following symbols. The underline symbol, the @ symbol, the question mark, or the exclamation point. So I get to use any 2 that I want. Here are my choices. The underline mark, which is oops. I mean, not oops, but oh, I just encountered a word that's new to me. It's not in my vocabulary. So that's what the underline is. The @ is, hey, what I'm about to underline is important. And it's important because. Question mark means, I just read something and I got a question now that I've read it. And then the exclamation point is, hey, wait a minute, this relates to my life in this way. Okay, so here's the paragraph. Paragraph 4. News of the Children's Crusade spread in the media, helping to transform the way Americans saw the civil rights movement. The New York Times ran more stories about civil rights in the 2 weeks after the Children's Crusade than it had in the previous 2 years combined. Scenes of children under attack were filmed and broadcast all over the world, setting off a global outcry. Polls showed that Americans across the land believed racial justice was the nation's biggest problem. So since we're doing this in a Word document, I decided to just highlight. So here are the 2 symbols that I'm using. I decided I was going to use the question mark, and I decided that I wanted to use the underline. So the question mark, this sentence right here, if we were in the building and you were writing in your book, I would have underlined this sentence. So it would have looked like this. If I was in the building and I had a textbook, I would have underlined this sentence. So it would have looked like this in my textbook, underlined. And it would not have been in green. So let me take the color off and just change it to the automatic, okay? So we were in a classroom. And I had my textbook because I can write in my textbook. I would have underlined this sentence, all right? And I would have put the question mark. I would have written a question mark like right next to the sentence. And then in the margin, I would have wrote my question. Here's my question down here. Why wasn't the New York Times running a lot of stories about civil rights before the Children's Crusade? That's my question. Okay. Then, as I was reading this paragraph, I said, racial. I've never heard of this word before, so I'm going to use the underline symbol. Now, because we're doing this on the computer, we're not underlining anything. I was just showing you that as an example if we were in the building. So we're not underlining. You can use, you can just change the color of the text. So I'm going to change the color. I'll go back to green. Okay. So this right here, when I read this sentence, I immediately had a question. And so I put the question mark underneath the paragraph and I said, why wasn't the New York Times running a lot of stories about civil rights before the Children's Crusade? So you see how after reading this sentence, here's the question that I had after reading this sentence. Then as I was reading, I said, oh, racial. I never heard of racial before. So I underlined racial. Let me not make that blue because we just want it to be regular, a regular color. I mean, the original color, which is black. So as I'm reading, I'm like, wait a minute. I've never heard of the word racial. So I underline it. Because up here, that's what the underline means. The underline means that this is a new vocabulary word. So I underline the word racial. And then I put the, let me take this. I don't want it to be blue. Because I just want it to be the regular color, which is black. Okay. So here's the definition of racial. Of relating to or characteristic of one race or the races of humankind. So I just annotated, I just had a conversation with this paragraph. I didn't know what racial meant, so I underlined it. I underlined the word racial, and I put the definition down here. After I read this sentence right here, I said, I got a question. So I used the question mark, and I typed my question down here. So the directions said only to use two of the following symbols. So I decided to use the question mark and the underline. You can pick any two that you want. So this is how you would do an example if I told you, this is how you would annotate a paragraph if I told you just to use two of the following symbols. So I did it for you. Now, if we were in the building and you were using your book, you would underline this right here. Where I have it in green, this would have been underlined. But because we're doing it on a Word document, you can just change the color, any color that you choose, and then down here, make sure you put the symbol, and then give me comments. It's not enough for you to just give me this, to highlight the text or change the color of the text and give me a symbol. You got to make notes. You got to give me notes because remember, that's what annotation is. Annotation is marking up a text or marking notes so that you can better comprehend what you read. Having a written conversation with the text. I had a written conversation with the text. I put the symbol and then I typed what my question was. It's not enough for you just to have the symbol. It's not enough for you to underline a word that is unfamiliar to you and not put the definition. So this is what I'm expecting. Now here's example number 2. Example number 2, you are to only use the hashtag symbol. That's it. So what's the hashtag symbol? It means that you're getting ready to summarize. You're getting ready to put this paragraph in your own words. So here's example 2. That's all you're doing for example 2 is just summarizing it. So here's paragraph 1 from the text, 1863, the year that changed everything. So in 1865, this is the very first paragraph in the text. 1863, I mean not 1863. This is the first paragraph of the text, 1963, the year that changed everything. And the directions is to only use the hashtag symbol. That's all you're going to do is use the hashtag symbol. So the first paragraph states, in 1865, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution ended slavery. Nearly a century later, African Americans continue to struggle for equality under the law. A number of major events in this dramatic battle took place in 1963. So, if we were in the building and I was using my textbook, this is what the paragraph would look like. It wouldn't have a color. Instead, this entire paragraph, I would have underlined it like this. And then next to it, I would have drawn the hashtag symbol. And then in the margins, I would have summarized that paragraph. I would have wrote in the margins my summary of this paragraph. But because we are doing this on a Word document, I don't want you to underline it. Just pick a color that you like. Any color that you like, okay? And then at the bottom, you put hashtag summarize. So, I could have started off and said this, long story short, this paragraph is saying. So let's do that. Let's follow the example. So long story short, okay. Long story short, I'm getting this from up here. I actually gave you sentence stems, how you can start your conversation with your text. You can, if you use the question mark, you can start your sentence by saying my question is, and then just type your question. If you use the exclamation point, you can start your sentence by saying, yes, this relates to my life for the reason being, and then give the reason. If you use the @ symbol, you can start your sentence off and say this detail is important because, and then finish it. If you use the hashtag symbol, which is hashtag summarize, you can start your sentence off by saying, long story short, this paragraph is saying. And summarizing, you need to be able to summarize that paragraph in 2 to 3 sentences. That's it. All right, so let's go back to the example. Example number 2, I want you to annotate this paragraph or have a conversation with this paragraph using the hashtag symbol. The hashtag symbol means that you're about to summarize this entire paragraph. You are about to put this paragraph in your own words. So at the bottom of the or below the paragraph, you would say hashtag summarize. And here I started off with the sentence that was already given to me. So I said, long story short, paragraph number 1 is saying that 100 years after the Constitution ended slavery, black people still had to prove they were equal to whites. Therefore, in 1963, blacks decided to demand respect and equal treatment from whites. I summarized this paragraph in 2 sentences. That's it. To do a summary, you should be able to summarize a paragraph in 2 to 3 sentences. No more, no less. So that's how you have a conversation with the text. That's how you annotate. So your assignment, I picked 2 different paragraphs from 1963, the year that changed everything. I picked 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph, you're going to do like I did in example 1. You're going to use 2 of the following symbols. The underline symbol means that you came across a word that's new to you. So you would underline it, and then at the bottom of that paragraph or underneath that paragraph, give me the definition of that word. You can use the @ symbol, which means you just read something that was important. And you're going to tell me why it's important. Okay? The question mark means that you read something in that paragraph and you have a question about it. You can do what I did and highlight that sentence that you have a question about, and then type the question underneath that paragraph. And then the exclamation point means that, hey, this relates to my life, and I'm excited that it relates to my life, and I'm going to tell you how this sentence that I just read in this paragraph relates to my life. So underneath the paragraph, whichever two symbols you chose, you must do like I did. Put the symbols and then put the text, put your conversation. So if you use the question mark, well, what's the question that you have? If you use the underline symbol, then I need to know the definition of the word. And then I picked another paragraph where you're just going to summarize it. You're going to use the hashtag symbol. All you're going to do is summarize the paragraph that I gave you. So you're going to use the hashtag symbol. Make sure you highlight the entire paragraph like I did. And then underneath that paragraph, summarize that paragraph in your own words. Now let's see if I can get to the actual assignment. So I could pull it up on the screen for you. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yep, here it is right here. All right, so okay. So let me pull it up on the screen. Let me make a new window for you because I want you to be able to see it. So I'm going to take this one away. I don't want to make changes to that. Okay, so I'm going to add a new. Okay, here it is. Here's the new window. So here's your assignment. Annotation 1963 is worth 30 points. All right, so here's the symbols. I put the symbols on the document. So if you underline any word, that means you're telling me, if I look at your paragraph and I see the underline, that means it's a new vocabulary word. It's a word that's new to you, and I'm looking for the definition of that word. All right, if you highlight anything, I'm going to be expecting either the question mark, the exclamation point, or the @ symbol. If I see that you highlighted any sentence in the paragraph, underneath that paragraph, I'm expecting you to use the question mark, the exclamation point, or the @ symbol. And then paragraph 2, this is all of these right here, the underline, the question mark, the exclamation point, and the @ symbol is for paragraph 1. Or for example number 1, which is worth 10 points. So, let me make it a little bigger. Okay. So 1963, the year that changed everything. I'm asking you to use 2 of the 4 symbols, 2 of the 4 annotation symbols. So you're getting ready to mark up this text and have a conversation with it. That's what annotation is. You're getting ready to mark up this text and have a conversation with it. So I don't care which symbol you use. So if I wanted to, let's say, for instance, this first sentence right here. In early May, the young people of Birmingham took King's message to heart. I don't want that sentence. Disobeying a court order, more than 1,000 African American students marched from the 16th Street Baptist Church. So let's say this sentence right here. It's just something about this sentence. I just think that this sentence is important. Okay? So, and I can't find on here. Let's see if it's under format. Because this is not a word program. Okay. So let's say I want to highlight this. I highlighted it. Okay. And let's say I'm thinking that that's an important detail, right? So at the bottom of the paragraph or underneath the paragraph, I'll put @ And I would say this detail is important because, and then I would give my reason. So let's say I keep reading. I'm like, yeah, okay. The next day, the students marched through Kelly Ingram Park. They were met by an angry white mob as well as police who blasted them with water from fire hoses and terrified them with dogs. Okay. Let's say this right here. I read that sentence and I have a question. So I can highlight it. And then down here, you can use different colors if you want. If you want to be creative, it's cool. So down here, I would say my question is, and then I would ask my question. So what you can do, so I know which one is which, I could have put, let me put it right there to show you. I could have put at the end of the sentence, I could have put the @ symbol. So when I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, okay. They read this symbol. They read the sentence and I see the @ symbol. That means that they think that this is important. So when I go down here, you're going to tell me why you think this sentence is important. Then this one, after you read this sentence, I say, oh, I got a question about this. So at the end, I'm going to put a question mark. So when I look at your assignment and I see that question mark at the end, I'm like, oh, they read this sentence and now they got a question about it. So when I go down here, I should see the question that you have about this sentence. So after you highlight the sentence, put the symbol at the end of the sentence. After you highlight the sentence, put the symbol at the end of the sentence. So if you're using the @ if you're using the question mark, or if you're using the exclamation point. Obviously, if you underline, say for instance, I didn't know what negotiate means. So if you underline that, I already know what that means. I see the underline. I already know you're about to tell me the definition of negotiate underneath this paragraph. But if you're not using the underline, at the end of the sentence, I need to see either the @ symbol, the question mark, or the exclamation point. So let me say that one more time. If you are using the @ symbol, the question mark, or the exclamation point, after you highlight the text, I need you to put the symbol at the end of the text. At the end of the sentence. So when I see it, I know when I look underneath this paragraph that this sentence right here you thought was important. And you're going to tell me why you thought it was important. When I see this sentence highlighted and it's a question mark at the end of it, I know that you have a question about this sentence. So when I look underneath the paragraph, I want to see what your question is. The only one, obviously, if you use the underline symbol, I know that it means that you're going to give me the definition of the word. All right, so that's example 1. And then example 2. So here's the paragraph. In early May, the young people of Birmingham took King's message to heart. Disobeying a court order, more than 1,000 African-American students marched from the 16th Street Baptist Church. The next day, the students marched through Kelly Ingram Park. They were met by an angry mob as well as police who blasted them with water from fire hoses and terrified them with dogs. The teenagers were jailed in temporary cells at the county fairgrounds. On the 7th day of the Children's Crusade, city officials agreed to negotiate with the African American community. A few days later, the two sides reached an agreement to end local segregation. So let me take all this stuff away, because I just did that as an example. I won't take it away. Oh yeah, let me take all this stuff away and return it back to its original text. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like. And you are to use 2 of the 4 annotation marks. And you are to have a conversation with this text. It is not enough for you just to highlight it and put the symbol. I need you to tell me what your question is. If you're using the exclamation point, I need you to tell me how it relates to your life. If you're using the @ symbol, I need you to tell me why this detail is important. And if you underline a word, I expect to see the definition of it. And all of that can go underneath the paragraph. All right, example 2 is worth 20 points. You are to only use the hashtag symbol, which means you are to summarize. You are to read this paragraph and you are to put it in your own words. So that summer brought a landmark event in civil rights history. This was the March for Jobs and Freedom that took place in Washington, D.C. on August 28th. Under the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech to a crowd of 200,000 people from all walks of life. The peace and hope of that event did not last long. On September 15th, a bomb exploded inside Birmingham's 16th Street Baptist Church. The attack killed 4 little African-American girls and injured 22 other people. So in this paragraph, you're only using 1 annotation symbol, and that's the hashtag, which means you're going to summarize this entire paragraph. This entire paragraph, I want you to put it in your own words in 2 to 3 sentences. That's what you're doing for example number 2. That's the conversation you're going to have with this paragraph. You're going to read this paragraph and you're going to say to this paragraph, basically paragraph, what you were saying was, and then you're going to type that out. That's example 2. Example 1, you get to have a conversation with this paragraph using 2 of the 4 symbols. You can either say, hey paragraph, you used the word that I didn't know the meaning of. And so here's the definition of that word. That's the underline. You're going to say to this paragraph, hey, I read something in you and I have a question about it. Or you could say to this paragraph, hey, I read something in this paragraph. Or hey paragraph, I read something in you and guess what? It relates to my life and it's how it relates to my life. Or you could use the @ symbol and you could tell the paragraph, hey, you said something that I think was very important, and this is why I think it's important. So when you're using the symbols up here, you are to highlight it and put the symbol at the end of the sentence like this. If you had a question about this sentence, you are to highlight it, and then at the end of the sentence, you are to put the question mark. So when I see it, I know that you have a question about this sentence, and that question needs to go underneath this paragraph. All right, so that is the annotation assignment for this week. I went over the different symbols. I went over what annotation means, and I went over 2 examples of how it should look when you annotate on a Word document. And then I showed you the actual assignment that you have to do and what I'm looking for. I will know if you watch this video in its entirety based on your assignment, based on your responses. If you did not watch this video in its entirety, I'm going to know based on what you turn in for this assignment. That is all, and I will talk to you on the next video.